Good evening, everybody. This is Tom Manning. You know, many of the great sports writers, radio sports commentators are down south, many of them getting ready for March 1st and the opening of spring training. Tonight, the top 10 events of the past year. But first, remember, friends, that wonderful Texaco Sky Chief gasoline. Can you do that? All right, now about the 10 top events of the year. Well, the first one, so voted by the sports writers and sports commentators, realignment in the majors, with Baltimore represented in the American League for the first time since 1902, and the Athletics moving from Philadelphia to Kansas City for 1955. They say that was the top event. Of course, there was a great rhubarb about the move of the Athletics to Kansas City. In again, out again, and finally in. They say the number 2 top event, the Giants' pennant victory in the National League, and of course, the miraculous sweep of the World Series. Number 3, ending of the Yankee supremacy by the Cleveland Indians, and the Cleveland Indians capture the American League pennant with a record of 111 victories. The 4th top event, of course, a no-hitter is rough to get. Jim Wilson of the Braves, and he tossed that one against the Phillies on June 12th. Number 5 top event, Stan Musial's 5 homers in a doubleheader. That occurred against the Giants on May 2nd. Top event number 6, 4 home runs and a double by Joe Adcock of the Braves in one game. That happened against the Dodgers on July 31. Top event number 7, 15 strikeouts by Carl Spooner of the Dodgers. That occurred against the Giants in the initial Major League appearance September 22nd. Must be stated, however, that the Giants had wrapped up the National League pennant just the day before. They were probably reading their clippings. But we'll see, because Spooner will be back with the Dodgers in 1955. Top event number 8, Willie Mays' great catch and the pinch hitting of Dusty Rhodes for the Giants in the World Series. Top event number 9, the 18-player deal between the Yankees and the Orioles. And the final and the 10th, 72 home runs by Joe Bauman of Roswell to set an all-time season record for organized baseball. Of course, that will not eliminate the 60 home runs hit by Babe Ruth, because that will always be tops until broken in the major leagues. That wraps it up for tonight, folks. Stay tuned now and hear the voice of Skip Ward. Hello, everybody. This is Tom Manning. Well, during the busy days of mid-January, we had some letters that we failed to answer, but tonight we'll try to get to them. Who is the most underrated player in the National League? Well, we've checked on that with some of the National League brains. It seems to be the rangy first baseman of the Brooklyn Dodgers, Gil Hodges. You rarely hear Gil mentioned as the key man of one of the Brooks, but if he isn't, we'd say who is. All he did last year was bat 304. He hit 42 home runs, drove in 130 runs. When the baseball writers balloted for the National League's most valuable player, Gil finished 10th in the voting, believe it or not. One man who does think that Ralph Kiner will have a glorious reign with the Cleveland Indians is his former teammate and Clevelander Frankie Baumholz. Frankie Baumholz is familiar with the shape of the Cleveland Stadium because he happens to live right here in Cleveland. He says Ralph Kiner will certainly help the Indians. He'll hit more homers in Cleveland than the 22 he hit for the Cubs. He hit plenty of line drive doubles off the left field fence at Wrigley Field last summer. Now that fence is 355 feet from home plate. The left field fence at the stadium is only 320 feet and much lower. Frankie Baumholz thinks that Kiner has been criticized unfairly for his fielding or lack of it. Another friend of ours wants to know how many managers have the majors had. Well, the major leagues have had a total of 189 team managers since the beginning of the century. Now, of this total, we find that on the Sporting News, 60 managed more than one club. Bucky Harris, Rogers Hornsby managed the most major league clubs, 5 each. Men who managed 4 clubs are Donnie Bush, Pat Donovan, Huey Duffy, Clark Griffith, Bill McKechnie, and Steve O'Neill. What about switch hitters leading the major leagues? Well, not since the beginning of baseball time has a switch hitter won a Major League batting championship. Red Schoendienst of the Cardinals nearly did it in 1953. He finished only 2 percentage points behind Carl Furillo of the Brooklyn Dodgers. And Joe Williams of the New York World Telegram and Sun says the switch hitter has sheer weight of numbers against him. About the only other important switch hitter in the National League is Junior Gillum. Hello, everybody. This is Tom Manning. Tonight, I'm going to reenact the story for you of the greatest football game that we ever saw, Notre Dame and Ohio State. Meantime, don't forget that wonderful Texaco Sky Chief gasoline. Now the game. Oh, the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. What memories those words call up. Newt Rockley, Gus Dorries, George Gipp, the Four Horsemen. Oh, the list is endless. There is something about that school in South Bend, something special that seems to lift a player to the dizzy heights of greatness just when greatness is needed. If you were in Columbus in 1935, you remember, you know what I mean. About 82,000 fans jammed their way into Ohio Stadium on the first Saturday of November 1935. It was the big game between Notre Dame and Ohio State. Columbus was raging with football fever. Both teams were eyeing the national championship. The Irish had won 5 straight, the Buckeyes 4 in a row. The Irish that year had speed and a great air attack. The Buckeyes, however, because of their tremendous power, were 3-2 favorites before the kickoff. The first break came early in the first period. Thanks to a great kick by Bill Shakespeare, the Irish took possession of the ball on the Ohio State 37-yard line. Mike Layden faded back to pass. He was rushed, and he had to get the ball away fast. Antonucci of Ohio State intercepted the pass on his own 25. He ran 3 yards, then flipped it out to Frank Boucher, a Buckeye back. Boucher grabbed the ball, picked up his interference, galloped 72 yards to a touchdown behind a wall of blockers that cut down every Irish tackler in sight. The point after touchdown was good. The Buckeyes of Ohio State led 7-0. The Buckeye ground attack started grinding out the yardage again early in the second quarter. An intercepted pass gave them the ball on the Notre Dame 45. The Buckeyes powered their way to another touchdown. Joe Williams scampered into the end zone, standing up behind a wave of blockers. Ohio State dominated the play all through the first half. When the gun sounded, the Buckeyes went to their dressing rooms leading 13-0. What looked like a close football game seemed to be turning into a rout. We can only guess what went on in the Irish dressing room at halftime. In the third period, the complexion of the game began to change. Slowly, the Scarlet Tide began to give way to the Irish of Notre Dame. At the end of the third quarter, the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame were knocking at the Ohio State goal. When the fourth period was only 4 plays old, Notre Dame had scored. Steve Miller bulled over from the Ohio 1-yard line. Notre Dame missed the conversion, and the score, Ohio State 13, Notre Dame 6. The next time the Irish got the ball, they seemed on the way to another touchdown. They moved deep into Buckeye territory. Miller tried again to smash through center of the Ohio line. He fumbled on the 1-yard line. The ball bounced into the end zone. It was smothered by a host of Ohio State players, and the Irish threat was ended. Well, time was the important factor now. The Buckeye attack stalled. They had to kick. The Irish took to the air. Andy Pilney started throwing one bullseye after another. Again, Notre Dame threatened. Pilney passed into the end zone. Mike Layden jumped high into the air. When he came down, the score was Ohio State 13, Notre Dame 12. A chance for a tie. A hush fell over the crowd. But the Irish again missed the kick. Ohio State 13, Notre Dame 12. Looked like it was all over. The Irish had to kick off. With a little more than a minute to play, the Buckeyes had the ball close to midfield. All they had to do was to stall, kill the clock. But the impossible happened. Dick Belts of Ohio State fumbled. The ball spun out of bounds, but Henry Poyan of Notre Dame was the last man to touch it. The Irish took the ball on their own 49-yard line. Only seconds left to play now. The book called for a pass. Pilney eased back to pass. Milner went deep, and then Pilney started to run. He went 5, 10, 20, 30 yards. Then, on the Ohio 19, he was engulfed by a wave of scarlet tacklers. Pilney was knocked out cold. The clock was stopped. Andy Pilney was carried off the field on a stretcher. Bill Shakespeare came into the game to replace the great Andy Pilney. The field judge looked at his watch and started fingering his gun. Shakespeare cocked his right arm over his ear. He passed. No good. Ohio State almost intercepted. Shakespeare dropped back again. The Buckeye line strained to reach him, but the pass was away. Milner, 1 yard in the end zone, down on one knee. Then the pass hit him smack on the numerals. That was the ball game. Notre Dame 18, Ohio State 13. The game ended 2 plays later. And that, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest football game ever played in Columbus, Ohio, or perhaps anywhere else. Good night, all.